So I'm starting the recording now.
This meeting is being recorded.
And will be made available to registered participants. Finally, SOL's work to promote awareness and practice of organic and ecological urban land care, and much of the work we do is made possible through the generous and ongoing support of Gaia College. So now I'm ready to introduce today's speaker. It's Astrid Muschalla, who has already presented in this series, and it's because she wears many hats and is involved with many different things. Astrid is an ecological garden designer with over 20 years of experience, an instructor with Gaia College, a committed SOL board member, and an active member of the gardening community that is increasing awareness and appreciation for ecological approaches to land care. Today, Astrid will be speaking about Little Forest Wolfe Island site. Welcome, Astrid.
Well, thank you very much, Christine, and hello, everybody on this first day of February. I'm on Wolfe Island, as it says, which is near Kingston, Ontario, and I'm on the unceded territory of the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe people. Also, I'd like to thank my colleague and friend, Joyce Hostin, who is also the co-founder of Little Forest Kingston, for most of these slides. I just want to make sure that I don't go too fast. So here's part of the motivation for planting little forests. The new science shows at least 50% protection is recommended for forest health, and the positive effects of drawing down carbon as well, not 10% as previously thought. And the connectedness of green spaces has been dramatically reduced, creating ecological deserts. Enter the Kawehnóhkwes method. Kawehnóhkwes called it the tiny forest, and it became trademarked methodology by A Forest, that's 2 F's and 2 T's, which makes this methodology available to everyone and anyone. We've called ours the Little Forest because of our soil preparation being different. Kawehnóhkwes says the forest is the root of all life. It is the womb that revives our biological instincts, that deepens our intelligence and increases our sensitivity as human beings. And a large part of this process is reconnecting people to nature. Professor Kawehnóhkwes is a botanist and has overseen the planting of more than 30 million trees in over 1,600 locations. He says that if you leave a return to being a forest, but that can take 150 to 200 years. So he developed a method that can squeeze those 150 years into a decade. And we'll soon see how. An important characteristic of these little or tiny forests is their density. Indeed, it's 30 times denser than conventional plantation planting. And by using a wide variety of tree species with different growth patterns, heights, and canopies, the forest utilizes 100% of the plot's vertical space. We help the land remember, and the land helps us remember. When I say density, we're talking about a minimum space of 100 square meters, which is about the size of a tennis court. Little forests support 100 times more species biodiversity than conventional landscapes above and below ground. And in that space, tiny forests have boasted 100 times more species biodiversity. Over 140 in the Netherlands are being measured since 2014. There's over 100 in India and many, many more coming all around the world. And for your interest, if you want to follow up on a great article, National Geographic did an expose in June 2021 on tiny forests worldwide. It's all about relationships. We've lost so many of the relationships with the land, with the plants, and with the community. When we destroy tree social structures, we destroy their ability to react to climate change. On its own, a tree cannot establish a consistent local climate. And that's a quote from Peter Wohlleben from his famous book on tree intelligence. We've also lost trees. This is the region that I'm in. The Great Lakes St. Lawrence Forest region is home to approximately 50 native tree species. We currently have less than 25% forest cover. So how we started was by examining the ecological context of our area's urban forest. And Kingston is located in the official Manitoulin Lake Simcoe ecoregion of the Mixed Wood Plains ecozone. So we're mostly hardwood deciduous forest. And let's go to the next slide. When we help the land remember by following the Miyawaki method, we have a method of natural forest regeneration. So first off, on the left, we start by choosing a forest community suited to the land, and that's where we studied our eco zones. We brought experts to confirm the plant species in this ecozone and specific smaller regions. Then we looked at assessing the site, what's the history, looking at soil testing, and we start with soil amendments, organics, microbiology, mycorrhizae, anything to prepare the land, and I'll talk about our specific site prep in a moment. Then we sourced seedlings of indigenous to our local forest communities. We contacted local growers and contracted them to grow what we wanted. And then we started to do the soil prep for planting the seedlings. And that's done very densely. Remember, I said density is the key. So in minimum 100 square meters, we planted 3 trees per meter, and it's random to foster relationships. After that, we are stewarding this little forest for 3 years by providing water, weed protection until the forest is self-sufficient. After 3 years, it's on its own, and we start to see other plants, perhaps forbs, coming in. The forest invites diversity of species, not just plants, but insects, birds, becoming as biodiverse as a 100-year-old forest in 15 to 20 years. And finally, little forests become mother forests, whose seeds generate future forests. Little forests become classrooms for learning on the land. This gets people close up to nature, a lost nature, and they also become special gathering spaces. And that's why it's so important to get the community involved, because these spaces have to be cared for 3 years. So our Wolfe Island forest design ended up being a circle with a yin-yang center. If you can imagine that squiggly line, and it was spread out by 10 meters. So you have 2 halves of the circle for such purposes for gathering. Ideally, we would like to have start our soil examination and soil prep and amendments in the fall to plant the following fall. But we started in the spring and planted that fall. So everything was done last year. And our specific soil prep included soil texture test, which everyone can do, and it's a great thing to do with school kids. We did drain tests, and in July, we did soil testing through A&L Labs. We did base saturation and soil biology testing. And as suspected, our site heavily bacterial dominated. We'll do it again in 2 to 3 years. We didn't feel the need to do a lot of soil prep because the site is part of the community center grounds here on Wolfe Island. It's near the public school, and it's just been growing pasture grasses basically for a very, very long time. There've been no chemicals used, and it is driven on, so compaction was going to be an issue, but we had a really good soil profile of sandy loam. But when we're looking at the soil, we're using our senses, the power of observation. We're looking at color, smell, as I'm sure you're all familiar with. And when you look at the soil profile of fungi to bacteria, pasture grasses range from 0 to 5 to 0 to 1 ratio. And so we needed to start to push that soil towards a fungal domination for deciduous trees, which is 5 to 1 or 100 to 1 ultimately. So we started adding fungal foods to the soil prep phase. This is where we started layering our organic matters that fungi favor. We started by layering leaf mold 4 to 6 inches on the grass. And in fact, we didn't have enough, so we used old hay, which a farmer donated. It's higher in nitrogen to facilitate good lignin decomposition. Then we added a half to 1 inch of composted manure. A minimum of 6 months was required for that manure, and that was spread on top by volunteers. And again, we then added 4 to 6 inches of fresh wood chips, preferably ramial chipped woods, I state here, because hardwood and young wood less than 2.5 inches in diameter or 7 centimeters in diameter of hardwood chipped when it's fresh has shown to be preferentially nutritious for young plants. That's a lot of research started at LaBelle University on ramial chipped wood, and some arborists are starting to supply it as a product for purchase. But we had an arborist on the island who knew exactly what I was looking for and could bring the loads as we needed it. We had 9 loads. We also purchased Root Rescue as a mycorrhizal fungi inoculum. Fungi, as you know, form mutually beneficial relationships with most plants. Endophytic fungi are the majority, which include grass associations, and ecto is mostly for evergreens and many hardwood species. And we found, after researching the many products, Root Rescue was a blend that had both and could solve all our needs by making it one application. Oh, I didn't say also that when we planted each of our saplings, we added a handful of healthy forest soil to the planting hole as well as a gift to thank the soil, thank the fungi, and to welcome the little trees. We created this wish book where all our volunteers would sign in, and the school kids in particular were invited to create their wish for the trees. And it was brought out several times during the summer as we worked there, and again over the fall planting. Now, this is our planting profile. These are the ideal layers that's been outlined in the Miyawaki method. You want about 20% canopy trees, 40 to 50% the next lower tree level, 25 to 30% of the subtree or understory tree level, and then 8 to 12% of the shrub layer. And this was exactly, the pie chart shows exactly what we did here on Wolfe Island in our 100 square meter plot with a density of 3 trees, total 300 saplings. And overall, we had 43 different species, and it was all done by volunteers from start to finish, and a lot of donated materials. And in the end, it cost us about $500 in total. And it could cost up to $5,000. We did actually 6 little forests all together in the fall, 5 on the Kingston side of the river, and here 1 on Wolfe Island. And some of those forests, which didn't have as many donations as we did, cost about $5,000.
Okay. I think Astrid is frozen at the moment. She lives on Wolfe Island and their internet connectivity isn't fantastic, so she'll be coming back in a minute, hopefully. Has she just gotten off altogether? There she is.
Hello, sorry, back again. My internet just dropped on me, and I'll go back to the slide. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Thank you.
You'll have to redo the screen share, I think.
Okay, thanks, Sandora. Let's find that.
Oh, I'll make you host again.
Yes, I can't see it.
Okay.
Whoops.
You should
Sorry
see
about
it.
that. Just.
No. Yeah, it's not giving me the option to make you host at the moment. Like nothing's coming down on that bar. Do you mind just continuing to talk while I try to?
Sure. It's never as fun without pictures, but I think you're getting the picture. I'm almost done. Like I said, we contracted local growers in the spring, and it would have been a lot cheaper if we, like less than half the price for the trees, if we had to receive them in the spring as plugs, repotted them all ourselves. But that's so labor intensive with the 6 sites in total. We just felt it would take a lot of risk out of it if we had the growers do that. And I see now I'm the host and I should be able to get my screen share back. Where is it? Oops. No, I'm not finding it. I'm still here, everybody, and let's try that. There we go, screen share. Thank you, Sandora, for putting that in the chat. That's great. So is everybody able to see now?
Yeah, we have the presenter view.
Okay, then we will just swap. And does that look good?
We're still in the
It's
presenter.
It's probably going to work. It just needs a second.
Too slow.
You've
There
done
goes.
this before. There we go. Okay, so anyhow, all the sites involve school kids of all grades to help plant. We even did classroom sessions on soil prep and had the students come to the site. One of the things I had them do when they arrived is ask them how they could tell if a soil was healthy or not. And I had them jump up and down on the grass and tell me what it felt like. And then I had them jumping up and down on the wood chips and tell me what that felt like. And they all said, oh, it's soft and spongy. And then of course they smelled it and they could tell that. And it was just a joy. We took pictures of each of the students and their little trees that they planted so that they could see from year to year how they were growing, not only their trees, but themselves. And we asked them to name the trees. So we had 43 different species, and I assumed that they would just name them by species. But of course, they started to name them Wally the walnut, and Bernie the bur oak, and Matilda the nanny berry, and so it went. It was just a thrill and lots of fun. We did a train the trainer video on how to plant and assigned 2 planters to a planting coach on planting days. So nobody planted things on their own. It was just all done with the supervision of a planting coach. And at any given time, there might have been 5 or 6 planting coaches. Once the kids got the hang of it, they actually started to become the plant coaches. And they said to their own coach, well, we don't need your help. We can do it ourselves. And then they started to proceed with the instructions and did a beautiful job. We used color-coded flags. You can see the marker flags there, the red and yellow and green tags, which corresponded to the canopy, tree, or shrub layer. And these marker flags would hold up the tree wraps we would apply in the winter, which happened about a month later. When the ground was frozen, we applied the tree guards. This was a huge research project. We had a Queen's student investigate biodegradable tree wraps, and he looked all around the world. We found a supplier in England, nobody in North America, another supplier in Austria. And just when we were about to hit send to put our order in, our conscience and common sense got the better of us. We said, this is ridiculous. We can't spend thousands and thousands of dollars on shipping. We have to do better. So we settled on Avon. It's a manufacturer that the wholesale arborists here in Ontario use as a supplier, but they didn't have any in stock. We went directly to Avon in Minnesota and got the wholesale price at $1.32 each. And it would have cost us closer to $2 if we bought the same product from the distributor in Ontario. So a good note to make for yourselves if you're purchasing. The timeline might look like this. It's a map to months where you're gathering materials, testing soil, surveying nearby native species, creating native plant species lists, and then procuring your saplings, amending soil, continuing to do that, community planting and nurturing. Whoops, sorry, I don't know what I just did there. And then you're going to monitor growth. So I said we planted everything randomly in a dense plantation of native species that grow in the different layers, but we were cognizant of flowering plants that we put more on the outside so that it would create an inviting visual appeal. There we go. So Kingston is now home to some of the first little forests in Canada. And Nature Canada actually recognized Little Forest Kingston with its Conservation Partner Award. And we also thank Seoul for winning or being acknowledged by the Greener Green Spaces project, which was launched last year. I'm very excited about all those entries. And what's next? Well, we're working with other partners in the city now to develop a toolkit to build capacity so that we can share this methodology with other communities. We'll continue to find sites and plant little forests while collecting data on the ones we just planted. Nature Canada has been helping us with what we would consider for data collection. And we have a Queen's PhD student who will be involved doing some pretty amazing work this year. Finally, do these mini forests solve all issues of deforestation? No, but they can be a step in the right direction. absorbing carbon dioxide, providing habitat for wildlife, and helping to keep soil healthy, and connecting green spaces. I think that's one of the important parts to it too. And so while tiny forests aren't a perfect answer, or even little forests, let's not lose sight of the forest for the trees. So I thank you very much for listening to me and the Little Forest Project here on Wolfe Island and Houston. And I'll stop my screen sharing now, and I can take questions, and it doesn't have to be necessarily about Little Forest. It can be about anything to do with ecological gardening, because this is the year of the ecological garden. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Astrid. That was extremely informative, interesting. And what I'm struck with is a couple things. And one of them is, first of all, the attention to soil as the foundation for the future health of this forest, and the importance given to it. And can you just clarify, did you say that that was one of the reasons why you named it a little forest as opposed to a tiny forest? Was in the
Right, the soil prep part. So
yeah,
once the tiny forest methodology was trademarked by Shabunda Sharma out of India, he's a Toyota engineer, and he studied the Milwaukee method and started doing little tiny forests at the Toyota plant in India, and saw how successful it was. He wanted to bring it farther and wider, and he's working worldwide. And so he developed a very specific methodology, which included doing deep soil ripping and adding a lot of amendments to a soil before planting. And we decided that we didn't need to do that here, so we couldn't really call ours tiny forest. And so we just named them little forests. So that's basically it.
All right. Well, the other thing that my last part of my question is, and then we'll get to hopefully people's, there's one question coming up in the chat, but please feel free to put some more in or send a signal that you would like to ask the question directly. But my other question to you, because you have been an ecological garden designer and have worked sort of more in private projects, but this is such a community-based project. It's a community building project. It reaches so many different partners and has been supported. And how does that feel for you to be a part of this particular initiative?
Oh, what a great question, Christine. You know, as somebody who has made this a career, and it's my livelihood, and it's how I pay my bills, to work as a volunteer, you have to be so aware of boundaries. You still have to draw an income and pay your bills. But it was a no-brainer for me to just jump in with both feet because of so many components. And it, you know, the worry of spreading myself too thin just went away, because the exposure that you get working as a volunteer like this, and the many aspects of this kind of project, reveals you need expertise on so many different levels. And I really loved being out with people, and especially during COVID. So, you know, we had our limitations with on-site demonstrations. So I would do soil testing at each of the locations, and we could only have 5 people at the site. And so we tried to videotape that and spread it around. There was a bi-weekly newsletter that went out to everybody that was interested to keep everybody up to date. So just that communication piece was a big volunteer effort. But to spread the word about soil health, which is my mission in life, I'm positive now. I couldn't think of a better way to do that, and so it was very satisfying, and you meet so many different people that I would have never have met otherwise, probably ever. So yeah, it's such a plus.
Okay, well, so I'm going to move to questions from the participants. So Marlene asks, are you or someone available to come to the, I think it's Kitchener-Waterloo area to do a workshop on this? Is this possible? Like, yes, you do so much sort of learning and sharing of information. Is it possible to go to a particular community to support a workshop?
Yes, absolutely. And Joyce Hostin is the one to do that. She has done a lot of these for different regions. She is incredible. Like I said, she's the co-founder of Little Forest Kingston. And if you go to the Rideau Thousand Islands Master Gardener website, you'll find a lot of background on the Little Forest methodology. You'll find a tremendous amount of resources there to help you and get started. And you can also contact Joyce through the website to arrange a workshop. And yeah, so that would be my recommendation.
Okay, and Sandora has put into the chat, she has put the website for Rideau Thousand Islands Master Garden. Yeah, you're right, that website has a ton of information, particular to this Little Forest idea, but also for the whole idea of regenerative gardening for ecological land care, that type of thing. So it's a very useful website to go to.
Yep.
So Maria asked,
actually, I just wanted to finish with that. Eventually, at some point this year, Little Forest Kingston will have its very own website, and it's being right now incorporated as a not-for-profit. And so it's just going to grow bigger and bigger. And like I said, we're working very diligently to get a grant in to build capacity to expand this program and to make it a very user-friendly toolkit for municipalities. So stay tuned and reach out to Joyce for sure. Sorry, Christine, just had to get that in there.
No, that's great. So Maria asked a question, and I think you mentioned it, but how large is your site? And don't the tree saplings compete with each other? What's that theory, or what's the evidence about the trees?
Yeah. Oh, it's really amazing. There's new stuff coming out about this all the time. There's not a competition, but a cooperation. And through this cooperation and sharing of resources, they are stronger together than if they were planted on their own. There is for sure some kind of competition which makes them grow faster. But is it the cooperation or the competition that's making that happen? The research is ongoing, and we're just starting to find out about this. Like I said, the minimum effective size to get that kind of growth is 100 square meters. And I did say that we had a 10-meter gap between our two halves, and that's never been done before. So we'll be particular about watching what happens here on the Wolfe Island site. The other sites in Kingston, they're all together or smaller breaks, and we'll just see if there's a difference. So this is citizen research at its finest here.
Yeah. Okay. So Anne, yeah, I'm sorry I missed your question earlier, but there's Anne is asking, are there trees that Ontario has lost, and can we replenish them, or are they listed on that Rideau 100,000 Island website? But are there trees that you know of in Ontario that have been lost? And is this what you're trying to plant? And I know in the application for the Greener Green Spaces, you also mentioned, yeah, bringing in some trees from southern regions that are not this far north yet. But what is your reasoning for that?
Yeah, Carolinian species. Effectively, we do see Carolinian species coming this far north and east, but not all of them. And climate change is affecting how the migration of these different species. And so we decided, we consulted a lot of experts on this, to do it or not to do it. Should we do it or shouldn't we do it? And the consensus seemed to be that, yeah, we could help it along by planting them. So one of our little forests is strictly Carolinian edible species. So it's an edible Carolinian forest. So there's a whole pawpaw section of the forest. Well, it is and it isn't. Like I said, we planted these species randomly. So we didn't want to have the same in a 3-meter square. There were always 3 different, and we tried to make sure that we didn't put 2 oaks together and that kind of thing, side by side. So for sure, like butternuts, for example, are endangered. They're very susceptible to a canker, but we can't stop planting them. So we found an expert in Ontario who was collecting butternut seeds from healthy trees that he could find across Ontario. That's his job. Can you believe it? And if we can keep planting these endangered species, perhaps we're giving that species enough time to develop more genetic resistance. Perhaps there are some healthy specimens that can live on. So yeah, we're trying to do all that. Did we plant ash? Some for sure. You know, emerald ash borer is such a big issue, but again, for the same reasoning as the butternuts. So I think it's a good opportunity to do that here in your little forests.
I should mention that the Greener Green Spaces program, so as I said at the beginning, it recognized 26 sites from across the country, and
Wow.
2 other ones have tiny forests or little forests as part of them. And one of them is in Hamilton with Green Venture Eco House, and one of them is here in Ottawa. It's with Champlain Park. So this one community had the opportunity to get the government to depave a street that was between 2 green spaces. And in removing that, they had the opportunity to plant. And so they chose to do a tiny forest in that location. And so, yeah, it'll be interesting to see over time, because what I really appreciate too is that these are fantastic learning sites. And yeah, as you put it, they're classrooms. They're classrooms for children, for the literacy about the ecology around them, but it's also for citizen science. Anybody at any stage in life can get an interest in this. And so a question for you, Astrid, is what do you think you'll be assessing 3 years from now? You said soil, again, soil testing, but what are you
We'll do soil testing
in terms of the data that you're collecting?
We're going to look at insects, the number of different insects, the quantity of them. That's going to be huge. Birds, butterflies, that we can honestly say we have 0 insects and birds in before the Little Forest site, because it was a mowed area and sometimes it was used as a parking lot and there was just no life there. So I can venture a guess that it's going to improve dramatically, but how much and how does that compare to other sites? So that will be a big focus. The other thing is attrition. What kind of losses are we going to see? For sure, there will be some, but it shouldn't be a lot. And unfortunately, on the Wolfe Island site and also one on the Kingston side, before we put the tree guards on, we had deer predation, and we lost maybe 3% of our plants due to the deer just eating the saplings. But I have seen it in the past where with these 1-year-old saplings, they can send out a new term leader. They can. So we have to be very, very vigilant in spring to watch and see what's coming up. We'll also be monitoring for what other kinds of plants are coming in just randomly by themselves. And we may do selective weeding, but we do want to encourage that herbaceous layer in the end, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, so exciting. Does anybody else have any questions? I know Sandora just put another reference for this, and that is, if you don't have a large space but want to plant a little forest in your yard, there's a spreadsheet of recommended species. So more materials on that wonderful website. So please go to that. And for anybody who's on here but would like to read the profile that we prepared based on the application for this, and we prepared these profiles, and now we have Astrid speaking about it, but it's on Sol's website along with the list of all the other 25 green spaces, and the profiles will be rolling out over the course of the next couple of weeks. And there's a whole map there that shows where the sites are and what types of projects these are. So I think we're getting close to the end, but
Christine,
yeah.
I just have one comment I thought of sharing, because this might be relevant to all our listeners too, that one of our volunteers right from the start is a landscape architect. He has his own business, bombas.ca, and he saw it as a learning opportunity for him to be involved, and he helped as much as he could with everything that was going on. He came to our meetings every 2 weeks, which we held on Saturday mornings, but in the end, now he has added that to his service roster, what he can supply to clients. And he has a client right now where he's actually putting in over 10 little forests on one site. And he's doing this as part of his business and services that he offers to land owners and homeowners. So I think we're just going to see more and more of this evolving and adapted. And we can turn the page maybe 3 years from now and say it's like we've been doing this forever, but only for 3 years, right? It just might happen like that, So
well, and now
hope
finally, we have information, a website that shows the Eco House, the Green Venture Eco House, and that's an amazing site that has not only a tiny forest but so many other features that are also just so considerate of the ecology around, the support to biodiversity, the attention to caring for the soil and the air and the water. And what you touched on, and that is how to do these land care projects in a way that is minimizing the ecological footprint, or being very conscious of it as well, and making choices that diminish the resources that it takes and keep cycling resources on site. So I do have to wrap this up because
thank you.
that is limited time. So yeah, thank you very much, Astrid, for today and for the other session as well. And thank you all for joining us and asking questions. We'll be back next week. So this is, as I said, this is a whole month featuring some of the green spaces across the country. So next week we're coming from Regina, and Phil, I see that he's on this as a participant today, but he'll be speaking about a beautiful perennial garden in Regina called Peace Garden. And so that's coming up next week. We'll hope you'll join us. And a final reminder to receive the emails and the link to the weekly recording, please sign up again on the Eventbrite site. And
thank you, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Christine and Sandora.
Okay, and please go visit these websites that have been mentioned in the chat. Okay, thank you very much.
Bye for now.